Good morning and welcome to United Way for Southeastern Michigan's virtual town hall. My name is Audrey Walker, and today we will be joined by Julie Cassidy with the Michigan League for Public Policy for a discussion about what we can expect in state and federal government over the next year. Julie will answer your questions during the last 10 minutes of today's town hall. So please leave your questions in the Q&A box if you're watching on Zoom or the comment box on Facebook. And now I'd like to give a warm welcome to United Way's President and CEO, Dr. Darian Hudson, to say a few words.
Thank you, Audrey, and good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us again for our weekly town hall. As we have come to realize, sometimes we have to expect the unexpected. And while we are leaving 2020 behind, we still have quite a bit that we're trying to resolve as a country. And the effects of the past year will be felt for quite some time. That's why it's so important for us to know what our elected officials are doing to help our communities get through this crisis and move forward stronger than before. We are delighted to be joined today by Julie Cassidy with the Michigan League for Public Policy, one of our partner organizations, to provide us with a look toward the future at what new policies and legislation 2021 may have in store for us at both the state and federal level. The Michigan League for Public Policy is a statewide research and advocacy organization whose mission is to ensure economic security, racial equity, health, and well-being for all people in Michigan through policy change. Julie Cassidy is the Senior Policy Analyst with Michigan League for Public Policy, where she focuses on the social determinants of health, such as food security, affordable energy, and safe, affordable housing. Prior to joining the League, Julie spent 14 years as a legislative analyst for the nonpartisan Senate Fiscal Agency. Julie holds a Bachelor of Arts in Social Relations and a Master's of Arts in Public Policy from Michigan State University. So now I'm very pleased to welcome Julie and to turn the presentation over to you. Thank you for being here with us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Happy New Year, everyone. It's great to be here today. I'd like to thank United Way of Southeast Michigan for inviting me to be part of the town hall today. It's always a pleasure to work with you. Today, I'd like to share some updates on the federal budget and COVID relief measures that have passed recently and what all of that's going to mean for Michigan, as well as what to expect as our state legislature begins a new session. So at the federal level, you may be aware that in late December, congressional leaders reached a deal on a package finally to both fund all of the sort of the baseline routine operations of the federal government for the remainder of the fiscal year and provide another round of much needed COVID relief. That package is not as comprehensive as we had hoped it would be, but it does provide substantial relief that will help us get through the next few months. So here are some of the highlights. The package provides $25 billion for nationwide rental assistance and extends the federal eviction moratorium through January 31st. It increases SNAP benefits by 15% through June. We know that hunger has skyrocketed over the last 9 months, and SNAP really is the most effective and efficient way to ensure that people get enough to eat during an economic crisis. So we're very excited to see that provision included in this relief package. The package extends unemployment benefits for millions of people who have lost their jobs and provides another round of direct payments that people can use to help stabilize their finances and meet their basic needs at this difficult time. Also positive, the deal extends these payments to some people and families that were previously excluded under the CARES Act earlier last year due to the immigration status of adult family members. So that's the good news. However, there are definitely areas in which this package falls short. Primarily, it fails to provide much needed aid to state, local, and tribal governments that are facing revenue shortfalls because of this pandemic. Without additional support, it's very likely that we'll see continued cuts that are really damaging to essential local services, things like education, healthcare, and public safety. In addition, despite growing numbers of people that are struggling to afford their basic needs, the agreement really doesn't extend relief for very long. It includes just a 1-month extension of the eviction moratorium, extends jobless benefits only through mid-March, and the SNAP increase will last just for 6 months. We really need a relief package that shows a commitment to people as long as this hardship associated with the pandemic lasts, And so the inclusion of a hard stop date to so many of these relief measures is quite troubling, and we hope these will be addressed. Also, while the deal extends tax credits for businesses that provide paid leave, it does not extend people's right to take that leave when they get sick, or if they have to take care of a loved one, or balance work and caregiving needs when their kids' schools are closed. Fortunately, incoming President Biden has signaled that further COVID relief is a priority once he takes office. So this bipartisan relief package that just passed is being described as a down payment on what we actually need to get us through this crisis. And we're urging the new Congress and new administration to act quickly to plug the holes in this agreement and provide some additional relief to struggling families in our economy. And we hope you will join us in that call to action. I wanted to dive a little more deeply into the rental assistance piece of the relief package. It includes $25 billion for states to help tenants who have fallen behind on their rent during this crisis. And Michigan's share of this funding is expected to be nearly $665 million, which is quite a lot. This can be used by the state and local governments. And then tribal governments in Michigan will also receive a rental assistance allocation. So this is a substantial pot of money, and it will be coming in not a moment too soon. You may be aware that Michigan created a new rental assistance program called the Eviction Diversion Program over the summer, using about $52 million in CARES Act money. That money is going to run out very quickly, probably in the next week or two. So we're very happy that this new and substantially larger pot of money will be coming into the state. However, it still is not enough to meet the need that renters are expected to have over the next year, and also the need of landlords who rely on payments from their tenants. We're not out of the woods yet by any means, and this pandemic has worsened what was already, in many communities, a crisis level shortage of affordable housing. It's also really highlighted how critical it is to have a safe place to live. So something that will continue to be a priority for us going forward is to keep pushing for more resources at both the federal and state levels to keep people safely and stably housed. That's really important. At the state level, going forward, the picture is still somewhat blurry, although a few things happening over the next few weeks should give us a better idea of how things are going to go during this year's budget negotiations and further development or evolution of the state's COVID strategy. As a result of the election, Republicans have maintained control over both the state House and Senate, and of course we still have a Democratic governor. So we'll continue to have a divided government and see a lot of the challenges that crop up with that. Compromise is going to be key to moving forward. Republicans did flip 2 Democratic seats, and Democrats also flipped 2 Republican seats. So the balance didn't change for voting purposes. So given all of that, I don't think we'll see much change in the dynamics of the policymaking process in Lansing and the sort of legislation that makes it to the governor's desk. Republican Senator Mike Shirkey remains the Senate Majority Leader. House Speaker Lee Chatfield was termed out, and Representative Jason Wentworth, another Republican, is the new Speaker. And so far, it sounds like his priorities and approach will be very similar to Speaker Chatfield. So again, I don't expect to see a whole lot of change there. Legislative committee assignments haven't been made yet, at least not publicly. So that's something that we're going to be keeping an eye on to see who is elected for leadership over some of the key policy and budget committees that we focus on. And again, that's something that will give us more clarity over the next few weeks. As for issues that could be priorities this legislative session, I think criminal justice will continue to be at the top of the list. This past session, we saw some incredible progress with criminal justice reforms. Many of them passed with very strong bipartisan support, which is really exciting. And so hopefully we can build on that momentum and continue to enact policies that are both more humane and represent a wiser use of our tax dollars. Some of the potential issues that might come up include arrest record expungement, improved treatment of pregnant people who are incarcerated, and possibly cash bail reform, which is something that we've been pushing for quite a while. So we're really excited about the possibilities there. There's an issue with funding the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund that will need to be resolved. The governor recently vetoed about $220 million that would have provided an extra 6 weeks of unemployment benefits for people who file for unemployment beginning January 1st of this year. Generally, the trust fund is funded by a tax on employers, but in this case, the $220 million was slated to come from the general fund. So essentially transferring the burden of funding these benefits from businesses to the people of the state. So we feel that sets a poor precedent, and we hope that the governor and the legislature can work together on a solution to ensure that people continue to receive the full 26 weeks of benefits as opposed to 20 without taking from the general fund. That fund, of course, funds so many core services that are more important than ever right now. I mentioned rental assistance and eviction moratoriums earlier, but we're also hoping to elevate the conversation about more long-term solutions to improve access to affordable housing, such as finding a permanent revenue stream for Michigan's Housing Trust Fund and protecting renters from discrimination by landlords based on their source of income. I don't know if we'll see legislation on these issues anytime soon, but we definitely want to start pushing with the increased attention to the importance of housing that the pandemic has brought. We really feel that now is the time to have this conversation. So I invite all of you to join us in the coming months as we work to build a larger movement around housing in our state and get some momentum towards some really transformational solutions that will improve well-being for people. On the state budget front, the Whitmer administration is currently working on its proposal for the 2022 budget year, which begins on October 1st. We anticipate that the governor will release her budget recommendation in early February, and after that's released, the legislature will begin its process of deliberation. So hopefully an agreement will be reached sometime this summer. July 1st has been the target date to get the budget finished in recent years, but obviously in 2020, COVID really threw that timeline off kilter. So we're hoping that things will go a little more predictably this year. It looks like Jim Stamas will remain the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, and Representative Thomas Elbert was named the new chair of the House Appropriations Committee. What the final budget might look like is not very clear at this point. It's still very early in the process, and a lot depends on how much revenue the state has to work with. Budget officials are scheduled to release an estimate of that on January 15th. And a lot also depends on whether Congress does come through with some more unrestricted funding to state and local governments who are really hurting, due to tax collections being down as a result of the pandemic. So there's unfortunately a lot of sitting and waiting ahead of us, which I know it feels like we've all been doing throughout the pandemic, but I'm optimistic that with President-elect Biden in office, the process at the federal level will be less volatile and less nail-biting. So that should give us some more certainty as a state and allow us to move forward in budgeting and planning and hopefully, effectively containing COVID so we can start getting back to, I don't want to say normal because we want to create a better normal than we had before the pandemic. I know this has obviously been an unusual and trying time. And so I'd like to thank United Way and all of our other partner organizations and communities around the state for all of the essential work you've been doing on the front lines of this crisis. And I want to emphasize that your voices are so important to exposing the reality of the crisis to your elected officials and holding them accountable to provide the resources that we all need to get through this and build a better future. So I really urge you to please contact your legislators, share any data you have, share personal stories about the need you're seeing in the community. And of course, I urge you to follow us at the Michigan League for Public Policy. You can go to our website, mlpp.org, and sign up for our newsletters and action alerts, get budget updates. There's all kinds of good stuff there. So I urge you to check it out. With that, I will wrap it up. And again, thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time today.
Thanks so much, Julie. We really appreciate the insight on what we can expect in the coming year. We do have some questions coming in, and we encourage you, if you're watching, to ask some questions within the chat. I guess I'll start with, you had mentioned that at the state level, we saw several bipartisan pieces of legislation pass at the end of 2020, and wondering, what some key pieces of legislation at the state level you see being a priority. I believe you mentioned a little bit about cash bail bond policy and why that's important and things like that. Can you expand on that a little bit further too?
Sure. On the cash bail reform, something that's been a problem for a long time is that when you are accused of a crime and arrested, whether or not you're able to go home before your trial starts is essentially whether you have money to pay to get out. It's not really a matter of public safety. It's based strictly on your ability to pay. That's completely unfair. And given that people with lower incomes are more likely to end up having contact with the justice system in the first place, it really just does compound the burden that people are feeling. In many of our jails, a substantial number of the people that are there have not yet been convicted of any crime. They're just merely there awaiting trial, because they can't afford to go home to their families. So we would like to see an end to this practice. It is gaining more traction. The Washtenaw County prosecutor just announced that they will no longer be enforcing cash bail in that county. So we would like to see an end to this practice statewide, especially with the threat of COVID. It's all the more urgent that we do whatever we can to reduce our jail and prison populations.
Definitely. And that's good information, because I don't think everybody realizes that, when it comes to those situations too. We have another question here regarding the unemployment being extended.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a clarity on, how long was it extended? I believe that you said March. And then has there been anything else that addresses special needs persons being able to go back to their day programs?
Yes, through the federal relief package, those unemployment benefits were extended through mid-March. And as far as people with disabilities, I'm not aware of any specific provisions targeted toward that. They may be there, I'm just not familiar with them. I do know that among the disability community, there has definitely been a feeling that they have been ignored in this package and in the CARES Act. So on that specific question about day programs, that's something I would have to look into, but I can try and get back to you with an answer. But yes, that is definitely something going forward that we need to be cognizant of in our relief efforts as well, at both the state and federal level. People with disabilities have been disproportionately affected by COVID from not only a health perspective, but from an employment perspective as well. So yeah, thank you so much for that question. And again, I'll try and find an answer to that specific question.
Yeah, thank you for that. And speaking of the COVID relief bill, at the federal level, do you think another COVID relief bill will be a priority or even on the table at this point?
I think it will. President-elect Biden has certainly signaled that that's important to him. I know in the House, which is under Democratic control, there will be support there as well. And depending on what happens today with the Georgia Senate election, there could be more of an appetite for that in the Senate too. So, I think regardless of party, I do think legislators understand that there is a need for further relief in their communities. What that looks like might vary between parties, but I think I think there's a possibility for the discussions and to get something good out of this, and particularly on that the piece about aid to state and local governments. That's going to be really important.
Yeah, definitely, especially since you mentioned so many local governments in Michigan are facing serious financial difficulties. Um, do you have an idea of how our state government could tackle that from a policy angle?
Um, I think from the league's perspective, for a long time, even before COVID hit, we've been really banging on the drum to say that we have a revenue problem. We need to bring new revenue into the state. Um, so, I think creating more fair tax structure, ensuring that large businesses are paying their fair share, and looking at a structure that focuses more on racial equity is going to be key going forward. I don't know, given the composition of our legislature, how realistic it is to expect anything to happen on that front. But I think that would be our solution.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Obviously, with this year's racial justice movement and ongoing health and economic crises that are talking about putting equity, into policy making, how can we make that a priority to our elected officials? Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the league, we do all of our work through a racial equity lens. So we believe that there is an equity angle to absolutely everything. All public policy has implications for racial justice. And so, as we look at strategies to contain COVID and to get our economy back on track and all of those things, we really need to ensure that those solutions are enacted with an eye towards racial equity, because a lot of the disparities that we're seeing now, they've always existed. They've just been really magnified right now. And so it really speaks to the persistence of structural racism. And I think we all need to recognize that, this is racism that has been baked in over generations. So even when we can't point to a specific person that is making a specifically racist policy decision today, we have to understand that this is the culmination of a time when that was the case, when
Right.
racism was explicit in our policies. So I think keeping an eye toward that is going to be very important, and we're very very pleased with the work that the governor has done on the racial equity front, and making that a key focus of her COVID strategy, and her general policy platform.
Now, the governor typically has a state of a state address early in the year. What are the top priorities you think that she might speak to as we enter COVID recovery?
That's hard to say. I think obviously, public health is going to be key. Even now, now that the vaccine is here, that's certainly a positive, but we're not going to be able to immediately go back to normal. So I think she will definitely be focused on, kind of easing back into a post-COVID world at a safe pace, as she did with her reopening plan, over the summer. And just dealing with the budget challenges that the state is going to be facing. I think those are going to be kind of the top two issues as we move forward.
Yeah, and policy-wise, what would you like to see in the first 100 days of this new administration coming in?
So speaking personally, we haven't really talked about this at the league, so I don't want to make any sort of or give the impression that this is an official league position. I would definitely like to see some movement on a further relief package. and an extension of the federal eviction moratorium. It had been scheduled to expire December 31st. It's now been extended to January 31st, but we know that people are going to continue to struggle long after that. And, housing is everything for people. If you don't have a safe place to live, your health is going to be compromised, your safety is going to be compromised, your ability to work is compromised, your kid's ability to do well in school is compromised. So, I think he really needs to focus on making sure that people can remain stably housed, as long as they're struggling.
Especially this year as it becomes our workplace and our school. Your house has been so essential.
Yeah.
That's definitely something to focus on for sure. And then I've just got a final question here. Last year, we saw a large turnout, obviously, in the election than ever before. How can people make sure they're staying engaged with their elected officials and holding them accountable?
That's an excellent question. I think it's the surge in voter turnout has been really amazing, and it just really shows that your vote does make a difference. When we all have the ability to exercise our right to vote, it makes our democracy stronger. And I think we get better policy out of that because again, there's that piece about holding our elected officials accountable. So I would say to definitely continue to engage with your legislators. You can easily send them a quick email or a phone call. It is a little bit more challenging now with you can't go to a coffee hour or something that your legislator might hold in the district, but at the same time, if you do have an internet connection, they can Zoom with you. So in some ways it might be easier. So I would just say definitely reach out to your legislator on issues that are important to you, and continue to follow the League and organizations like United Way and other community-based organizations for their action alerts. We know that you are all very busy with your own jobs and lives and dealing with COVID. And so, you can't possibly stay on top of everything that's happening in Lansing. So that's why we're here. So I would say just get on our mailing list, and you'll be sure to get action alerts, and you'll know, when the key times are to reach out to people and really start putting that pressure on, to let them know that they need to do their jobs.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much again, Julie, for being here with us today. We really appreciate your insights on this. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Hudson.
Thank you so much, Audrey. And again, thank you, Julie, for that very informative update and helping us set expectations for who our leaders are going to be, and also what we are hoping they are going to do with the platform that they have. So it's very informative. I'm very appreciative of that information. So before we part ways, I just wanted to remind everyone that if you need help, help is available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through our 211 hotline. All you have to do is dial those 3 digits, or you can also go to unitedwayscm.org/211. And it's basically all you need is your zip code when you call, and you're able to tell them if you need rental assistance, if you need diapers, if you need to find a food pantry. We are here to serve and to support you through this crisis and beyond. Our next town hall has yet to be scheduled, but if you are looking for past town halls, and if you're interested in receiving alerts, you can go to www.unitedwayscm.org/virtual town halls. So until we meet again, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, thank you, Julie, and to the League for your support throughout this crisis and for helping us forecast what's to come. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.